Hey, this is Ben. Gonna take a look at the new Garruk that was just spoiled here yesterday. So here's the picture of the card. There's not really a nice way to zoom in and make it look nice. So they do have the alternate that's going to be at Comic-Con that actually looks pretty cool. I'm sure those are going to go for a ton of money because not very many copies are going to be available. But as far as the actual card, here are the abilities off of MTG Salvation's spoiler. So first off, it costs 6 mana. So for Cube, anything that costs 6 mana is going to have to be pretty nuts to make the cut. Personally, I'm way more willing to test the new cards than a lot of people. So I test new cards pretty aggressively, sometimes even for a month or two, especially now with M14. I guess it's still 3 weeks away before the official release date, almost a month. But even with that, I'm willing to test cards to give them a try, even though they might get dismissed by the general community. And I've come across some really good cards that way. But let's talk about the abilities of Garruk. So it starts off with 4 loyalty, and the +1, reveal top 5 cards of your library. Put all creature cards revealed this way into your hand, rest on the bottom of your library. So it's essentially a drawing mechanism for green, which is always welcome. But again, we just keep going back to the mana cost of 6 mana, which is it's just a lot. So if you have, I did some quick numbers on this. If you have 14 creatures in your deck, which might be on the low side for a green deck, maybe a little depending on what colors you are. But if you have 14 creatures in your deck, the +1 will on average draw you 1.75 cards. So assuming you just play Garruk, you +1 him, and then he dies in response, was it worth 6 mana to draw 1.75 cards? Obviously not. But you're going to get better value if you use the second ability first, potentially. You may put a green creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. So what this means for my cube, and I run a 540 cube, is those are my 5 big creatures that cost more than 6 mana. I do run Prime Time as well, so that would be a break even if I played Garruk into Prime Time just to get Garruk on the board first. If you can somehow resolve Garruk, having this stuff not get countered is relevant, but I would guess that if you're playing against a blue mage, it probably won't resolve because they don't want you drawing lots of extra creatures, and they might not have many ways to actually kill the walker once it hits the board. But it would be nice to get some of these creatures out for free, quote unquote. Especially like the Woodfall Primus would be nice, or Terastodon, or Craterhoof. Maybe you can cast a regular creature the turn after you play Garruk, and then cheat in Craterhoof for free. That would be really sweet as just a way to get some more power on the board to try and win the game right there. But once we start talking about 6, 7, 8 mana, I know it's a green deck, and I know it ramps, and especially my cube, I really support the ramp deck slightly more than most cubes. But it almost feels like Magical Christmas Land when we're talking about these kind of numbers. So, back to Garruk. Being able to cast a green creature card for free is sweet. And what's even more relevant versus like the new Liliana, for example, where you can play her, Liliana the Dark Realms, you play her and then you minus her and then you lose her. So it's like a removal spell, but it also removes your walker that you just played. So for 6 mana, you better be getting some value. And being able to do this and then cast a green creature or play a green creature in the same turn and have Garruk live is relevant. So if you're green and you have a good board presence, you can just play Garruk -3 to get another creature onto the battlefield, and then just start +1ing to get more value. That seems pretty good. The ultimate takes 7, so it would take 3 full turns of building up Garruk's loyalty to cast it to lose it. It says when you get an emblem, whenever you cast a creature spell, you may search your library for a creature card, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So this is a card very similar, in some ways, it's similar to Domri Rad in that the more creatures you're running, the better it gets. And Domri Rad itself was a 3 mana planeswalker, and obviously only flipped the +1, only did the top card of your library. But even Domri Rad has been kind of just mediocre in my cube experience over the last few months, and actually we just cut her from the cube just this week. So I'm not sure about Garruk's long-term viability for cube. it it is another 6 mana spell for green, and back to my cube, I only run 5 green spells that cost more than the 6 mana to make it worthwhile. But at the same time, maybe the green decks could use another target, another big card to play once they get all that mana. And it would be a way if you're in top decking mode, I guess, if both you and your opponent are in a standstill. But honestly, I run a powered cube and it's pretty fast, so that scenario doesn't happen as often as it would in some of the slower cubes. I guess there's not as many of those nowadays anyway. But overall, Garruk, I'm going to test it just because my cube group, green is probably the favorite color of my cube group. So I'm sure they would be upset if we didn't at least try them. But overall, I'm pessimistic about its long-term ability to stay in the cube. But I could be wrong. That's why I love testing these cards. And if nothing else, it's a month or two of trying out a new card just to see how it plays in a cube environment. That's one of the things that I really enjoy about just being able to just print up a fake copy of the card just to test it before it's even released as a nice way to just see how it does. So I guess that's my summary on Garruk. Not sure what to think. Overall, not super optimistic, especially I guess I should talk about Progenitus, because Progenitus would be the sweetest card to be able to flash in to play. Not flash. Be able to just put into play for free. So, but I don't think adding one sketchy card to make another sketchy card better is what Cube is about, because that's what you see some people try and do when they're talking about maybe adding this card, maybe this card gets better if I added this other bad card, but I don't know. So we'll see how Garruk plays out. That's my review of Garruk. So in summary, going to test him out, but not optimistic about his long-term viability in Cube. So